When you listen to anything regarding M&A, you probably think of the same person, legal people. The lawyers enter the room. And that's what most people think. However, there's more to M&A, and we have an expert on the matter with us here today. Hello and welcome again, backed by popular demand, Byron McFarland.
Well, hello, Niels. Good to see you again.
Thank you very much for taking the time again. You see, you have a real fan group here right now. So you talk about the human side of M&A, and most people say, look, M&A, we work our business, we do our thing, and then lawyers are working their thing in the boardroom, and suddenly it's all we are merged, and then we are one company. That's what most people perceive M&A like. They say the legal people do their job, we do our job, we have to little bit of papers, and suddenly we are merged. What do you see as the human side of M&A?
The the people that are actually delivering the result on behalf of the business present both opportunity and risk. The individuals who are playing key roles within the organization, either leading departments, sales or operations, or even teams, human resources, if they feel like they're being disrespected in a transaction or they fear being somehow or another marginalized in a transaction, they can create adverse outcomes for the business owner during the most sensitive period of due diligence, which is
Mm,
the when they do when they want to interview the management team.
mm,
In my experience, if the owner has not prepped the senior leadership team and have them agree in in principle that selling this company makes the most sense now, and they understand what's in it for them, then chances are that leader is going to say or do something in that end stage of due diligence that could result in value leaking out of the bottom.
mm. The main
So
question now
that's
is when you want to prepare your CV, how do you properly prepare them that they are, because you know these interviews can be tough and they get into
yeah.
details there to a very high extent. So how do you prepare people when they don't really know what kind of interviews coming up there?
Well, first I have my owners ask their senior leadership team how they'd feel about making this change and telling them why this change is important to the owner. And then further have them share with the leadership team what we need them to do in order for this change to actually be realistic in the way of an outcome. And finally, answer the question that everybody wants to know: what's in it for them?
Hmm.
And so that's how we approach it: is share with them where we're going, why it's important to go there, what they need from the leadership team, and then what's in it for them if we're successful.
What happens when the what's in it for them is rather unclear because they know that the situation is not, let's say, that easy. Maybe they say, look, we had an owner, the owner doesn't have any children that want to take over the business. We know they have to sell, they want to retire. None of the children show up to actually buy it. It's not offered to us. So we actually know it's happening anyway. So where is the what's in it for me in that situation? How to deal with these? Because we will have a lot of businesses facing that situation the next 10, 15 years.
Yes, it's a very common problem, and we routinely are creating sale bonuses that are tied to the transaction.
Hmm.
For example, if the owner successfully closes a transaction and gets paid, then the senior leadership team would receive a sale bonus. And we commonly structure the bonus so it's paid in two installments. The first installment is at closing,
Hmm.
and the second installment is, say, a year or 18 months from closing, so that they're encouraged to stay through the transition, which gives the buyer a
Yeah.
sense of confidence that they can continue to operate through the integration
Yeah.
of the organization.
Yeah. Would you say that you should disclose that kind of bonus? Should you disclose to the buyer, hey, I'm paying my people a bonus on this now and in 18 months?
Oh yes, we that's part of the due diligence on the buy side, is to determine whether or not there's a defection risk
Yeah.
that exists in the leadership team, and that having the plan in place is a value additive step for the owner, for the selling owner, by
Mm.
providing the buyer with certainty that the leadership team is going to stay through the transaction, presents stability, continuity for the buyer, so the buyer knows, hey, I've got an in-place leadership team that can continue to run this business. They're motivated to stay because they're getting this piece of the action.
Excellent. Now I have to confront you with one statement which, when I prepared here, one lawyer told me who's working for a very well-known three-letter consultancy company, which you most likely know, and he does M&A. He says, look, when they want to leave, they can leave. Anyone is replaceable. When someone from the senior leadership wants to leave, let them go. We will find someone else. What's your take on that approach where they say, look, just get the deal closed. It's an M&A. When they want to leave, they leave. We find someone.
I would say that seems like an unnecessary risk for the seller to take because the buyer doesn't have an in-place leadership team that they're going to tuck into the operation. And typically most businesses are priced based on trailing 12 months earnings. So if the senior leadership team becomes aware that there's a transaction imminent and they're not happy about it and they leave, that adversely affects the trailing 12 months earnings. And with these multiples of 8 to 12 times trailing 12 months earnings, $100,000 loss in income based upon the loss of a person could be a $1 million value hit. So I don't see where it's worth it.
Yeah, excellent. Fully agree here. How do you deal with the situation which happened in my circle of friends, where someone during an M&A, when he was confronted with the idea of we're going to sell this, it was a marketing company that was well growing, but the same problem, children didn't want to take over the business. The owner was almost 70 years old, wanted to sell, and he sold it to a major marketing corporation. And one of my friends said, I am not working for corporations. I'm deliberately working for owner-led businesses. When he sells, I will leave. I mean, that's at least very transparent. He said he said, when you sell this, I'm going to be gone in a year. But how do you deal with that situation when you want to sell your business for a good value?
If that person is key to the valuation, then I would negotiate with them to compromise their plan and reward them substantially, meaningfully, so that they would be encouraged to stay through the transition and allow the buyer to then integrate somebody else into that position.
Do you mean like for a year, for 2 years? What is the usual time frame you would estimate here?
It really depends, Niels, on the level of contribution the person's making to
It was the
profitability
leading
or success.
salesperson, that person that held most of the client contacts in their hands and knew these clients for 15 years plus.
Then that sounds like value
Yeah,
risk.
yeah.
And if I was the seller if I was the buyer, I would be asking the question, how transferable are those relationships to us?
Mm,
And if they're not highly transferable, meaning that they're somehow or another emotionally connected to the people, they're not under contract, they're all project based, and this person is the one who keeps them coming back, then I would be negotiating as long of a term of a relationship with them as possible.
mm. Excellent. So when you now talk about the human side of M&A, and some people still insist on saying, look, it's probably 20% human side, it's 80% transaction on the legal side. Would you agree with that, or would you say it's a different percentage?
Well, valuations are largely blue sky.
Absolutely.
And blue sky is usually the result of clients' willingness to keep coming back or new clients' willingness to sign on. And so far, I haven't seen where automation is able to replace a human in bringing on clients or managing the challenges the clients have in their routine workings with their vendors.
Mm,
So I would argue that 80% of a transaction value is goodwill, which is usually the result of people doing the right thing. Other than in the prior to AI, where software as a service, you could sell the software as the blue sky. But majority of businesses I deal with are service-based businesses,
hmm.
and their blue sky is people doing very predictable things that make clients happy.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if that isn't recognized, then that's a balance sheet sale, which is book value, which in my case, service businesses, represent less than 20% of the value of
Yeah.
any transaction.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, one question I have to ask because you brought the term up now. When now some buyer shows up and say, look, we look at your business and we have AI on board and we can cut your staff by 30% as soon as we buy it. That will very quickly make the round amongst the staff of the purchase being done here. How do you deal with situations when people, and that is a common reaction, they hear M&A and immediately people are scared losing their job, especially when someone pulls out the term AI saying, oh, you have production staff, automation and AI, we're going to cut jobs here. How do you deal with that situation that you still keep the buy-in high when people say, no matter what bonus you offer me, no bonus is going to pay off when I live in my area and I'm unemployed, that bonus lasts for a year and then I'm still there with no money, no job, no future. How to deal with that situation on the human side of AI?
Well, let's talk about cascading the message. Typically in a transaction, the people that know about the transaction to be the ones that are immediately surrounding the owner. And there's rarely ever any cascaded message below that. So normally the department heads would know the transactions occurring. And in some cases, not all of them know. But in the projects that we lead, we're advising our clients to bring their leadership team in on the plan so that we can have them participate in the interviews, give the buyer a sense of confidence that the numbers and the processes that have been presented are all as they've been described. There's nothing I can really do about people below them to get them convinced that they're going to be okay.
Mm.
So we focus on the senior leadership team,
Yeah.
stabilizing them, and then if the organization that is acquiring them is going to replace labor with automation, that's part of the value that they're basically creating for themselves in the transition. They're going to deal with the fallout. They're going to know that there's going to be psychological impact of that. But the ones who get to stay, given the current state of the economies, they're probably going to feel lucky that they get to keep their job.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the honesty here. Perfect. And when our people say, look, we're dealing with exactly these kind of issues here, with exactly that situation, we need help on the matter. You have lots of experience here, and people wonder, how can we get in touch with you?
Well, my website is themcfarlandgroup.com. My LinkedIn is Byron K. McFarland, and my email is byron@themcfarlandgroup.com.
I think these are the perfect final words. We see M&A has a human side, and you need to deal with it when you want to get the right evaluation. So at the end of this podcast and videocast, there's only one thing left for me to say. Baron, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome, Niels.